the rights of women during a divorce or in a divorce from an Islamic legal perspective.
It's very
And
clear. It's very clearly written out in Surah Al-Talaq. Like if you go step
yes,
by
and
step, it's very clear, but culture doesn't apply that.
yes, and I remember that, what led to that, and even after that, was the fact that, and the sentiments of the people, was because I actually had seen people who had been stuck in marriages they wanted to end for 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. They had to end up traveling to Najaf and Iran and Mashhad and this and that just to get themselves out of a marriage. And that's a joke, when you actually say it,
Ridiculous.
it's
It should be
ridiculous.
very simple. It should be very
Uh,
simple.
so I remember I then came across somebody who said she was stuck, and this is no exaggeration. We're not just saying this number because we want to exaggerate it. Somebody said, I have been trying to divorce for 7 years.
Mm.
So, those things are real. What advice you would give to somebody who has lost her husband? He's dead. He's gone. He's passed away. Um, she's young. She can get remarried. Uh, what are some of the greatest obstacles they face, and what is one advice you would give them? She could have been in love with this person. She cared for him, but he passed away, whether it's
Right,
illness, whether it's whatever it may be. He passed away, or she passed away, regardless.
right, right.
And it's very difficult for those people to actually find themselves after this. The next question, yes, I want you to discuss a separation where two people don't like each other. So I'm pretty sure it's easier for them to separate and find others. Yeah.
So the first one, I'm sorry to hear for anybody who has gone through that, and it's very painful because the love of your life, you were compatible, you had these life goals together, you're building a life together. Of course, very tragic and sad. And some people, after a period of mourning and time, allow themselves to open up to the possibility of finding love again and going into marriage. There is that route, and there are others who probably say, "No, I don't want to do that again. I have found my soulmate." And I guess it truly depends on the person, what they believe in spirituality and the physical and the afterlife. A lot of people talk about, you were spiritually connected even though they're physically not here. Is this person likely to find that spiritual connection with another person? Probably not. So it truly depends on the person's emotional stability, their maturity as well, right? Even if they're young. I've seen stories of people remarrying later on in life, and although they were widowed, they a part of their lives in the past, it's in the past, but they still honor and carry it on in their new life and have been able to find that love again and stability. And alhamdulillah. And then you have others who choose not to go down that path, or they have tried and they just haven't found that type of connection. So then they put themselves into different areas in their life to kind of fulfill the void, so to speak. Some in a healthy way, and some unfortunately in an unhealthy way for a long time before they can be stable. So these situations are very different from when you're talking about two people who are not together because they don't want to be. First and foremost, for a lot of people, is that they're glad that they're no longer with that person. There's a sense of freedom and elation, and they're happy. But then separation is very different than divorce, right? We spoke earlier quickly about, or rather quite lengthily, about the separation process when you have people who are not respecting the process and the procedures, and then you have people who, when they divorce in a good, healthy way, and I've seen stories of that where they just respect the fact that they don't get along, they don't have the same goals, they don't have the same mutual interests, and they respectfully go their way. And in these situations, these are the ideal, which we know don't really happen that often, because sometimes there tends to be hate, there tends to be a power struggle, and there tends to be quite a bit of resentment, let's say, from a woman who's gotten, rather from a man whose wife has gotten away from him, so to speak. And he wasn't expecting that. Or and because of the abuse of
That's the
power.
second question I want to ask you, but the
Yeah.
first one, I want you to tell us, or tell our audience as well, what can our centers, our religious leadership do to provide a better service, to enhance the life of individuals? Because, you see, our communities, for the most part, have a give, give, give type of relationship with with the community.
Right.
Meaning, you know, pay the bills, volunteer, attend, support, clean, this, that, just give us. And in return, yes, we provide speakers, we provide majalis, but that's about it. You know, a community center is a lot more than that now, and especially in the West. You know, one of the things that we're trying to do is we're trying to provide all the services that we can that would make the lives of our audience better. I don't want to get into that now, but what can a leader, what can a community do in order to provide a better life, provide solutions, provide emotional support, or whatever is needed to those who have lost, you know, a husband or a wife, and they have children, or they don't, you know, what are they in need of usually, and what can we support them with?
Compassion, understanding, no judgment, right? When you see a woman who's become divorced or widowed, what is the immediate stereotype that we have on her? Oh, she's going to go do temporary marriage. She's going to be promiscuous. She's going to do muta. You know, we have that, and it's always there. It's always been there, and it's unfortunate that people right away look at a woman like that when this is her situation. You don't have the same attitude towards men when they become single again. Every woman that gets divorced, she has messages from men that she doesn't even know, who all of a sudden know that she's single, right? And get all sorts of disgusting invitations. She's put down, she's looked down on. Is she somebody who's going to be looked upon properly for marriage, or rather just for temporary fun? You don't need to do a poll. You're more than welcome to. I'd be interested to be proven wrong on this point. Guaranteed, this is what the community perspective is. They don't look at these women, and I see that you're almost bending down like in shame. I can see in your face this is fact, that this is how women are treated in our community when they become divorced or single or widowed, because they are used goods, and that's all they're good for. Unfortunately, rarely do you find a woman with children approached respectfully for actual marriage.
How do we solve this?
What do you mean? How do we solve it? Let's get to this one
later.
It's
a problem. How do we solve this problem?
As
community leaders, yes.
To change the mentality of men towards women. Is this a task that we can actually do? Changing how men look at women in terms of a sex object, a piece of meat, rather than a respectful mother of a generation to follow. It's unfortunately the way that some, I'm not saying all, right? Not all. Mashallah, we have incredible men who've stepped up to the plate, who've married divorced women, raised their children as their own. We have that. For the most part, you have these young bucks going out there, sniffing out divorced single women or widowed, and just hitting them up just for that. The stories that I get from young women who are divorced or widows, this is all that they're good for. And they are used by the men in the community, whether the young men just looking around in their 20s before they get settled down in their 30s, or you have men in positions of power who are there to give the divorce, who say, I will give you the divorce if you do this with me after the divorce, okay? I've heard this from the mouths of sheikhs. I'm not saying this is what I'm only seeing, but I've heard this with the sheikhs that I work with when we discuss this problem. Now, I was going to answer in terms of how as a community organization we can help, but then we've jumped onto this now.
Yeah, please go ahead.
I'll get back to this point in a moment, but just the first question, what can we do as a community? I think it's very important that we offer that compassion and support and love. And we see now, mashallah, the quality of the programs that our communities are doing. Not just majalis, which are absolutely important as part of our majalis culture to keep the stories and the culture of the Ahlul Bayt alive. However, you have these types of programs that are very educational. And this is also part of the culture of the Ahlul Bayt, right? In terms of propagating knowledge and putting that out there. So an exemplary center that I always look up to, and I truly respect what they do, and I've had the honor of working with them, is the Jafari Center in Toronto. And I'm sure you've heard of them, not only because of their beautiful structure of a building that they have, but the services that they have put into developing for the community. They have programs for the elderly. They have programs for different languages. They have a full running school. They have a gym for both men and women. They have a full gymnasium, they have a school, like we said, they have a banquet hall. So these are some of the services. They also have social services. They have an actual therapist. And when I first saw that years ago, when first visiting this center, I was in awe and I was just ecstatic as a young therapist that there is a Shia center that actually acknowledges this and has an actual center that has a door on it. So these types of communities have developed to meet the needs of the communities. And when I attended, and I've attended regularly there, and I had the honor of attending their majalis last year for Muharram, and I was just astounded how over 4,000 people come to this center. They organize in terms of parking and needs and elderly and children, and it goes on. So my point here, back to this, is how they address the marriage issue, right? So they have programs on matchmaking, which is great. So they have that option for young people. They have the option of helping widows. I think it was a program that I just saw, just this week, that they had spoken about in terms of losing a child, miscarriage. This is solely something that they're speaking about as well. So you see, they're hitting all the marks in terms of how to address issues that are happening in our community in a psychoeducational, spiritual manner, in a language that we all understand and connect with. This is a model that I think all of our centers can take and customize to the needs of our own individual communities, in terms of going back to the original model of what a mosque is supposed to be like from the days of the Prophet, right? Which was an actual community center, not just a place for Quran, not just a place for majalis, but to be holistic, just the way the Prophet and the Ahlul Bayt taught us. So this is my short answer for such a huge question, Sayyidina, in terms of how do we address these issues of young widows, of young divorcees, is to create these types of programs by talking about it. So when you have a poster that talks about miscarriage, you're guaranteed that those people who are dealing with that postpartum or the loss of this child, they feel that somebody's listening to them, right? And so they listen to these programs so they feel safe. When you feel safe that somebody's addressing an issue that you are hurting from, you are more likely to reach out and get help. So perhaps centers can poll. Now here's the poll part. Centers can poll to see what are the needs of their community, not just putting on the mandatory, obligatory, and necessary religious programs, but addressing what are the needs of the community. What do they need? What do they need met so that they can feel fulfilled, supported, and understood with no judgment?
How can a man approach a woman what is the appropriate way? And I'm not just asking from an Islamic perspective, I'm asking from a perspective that resonates with ladies in our community, with their families. What's stopping young men to approach a woman who had been involved in a marriage previously, whether it's, whether she's a widow or she is a divorcee? And what is the appropriate way to do that?
The appropriate way for young men is just be yourself in a respectful manner, really, right? Be honest and straight up. Say, Assalamu alaikum. Sorry, if you want to apologize, that's fine. That's very Canadian, by the way. We apologize before we even say anything. But just be honest with your intentions, right? If it is for temporary, you make that clear straight up. If it's for a permanent marriage, you make that clear straight up. Give the choice to the person. Go with your intention. If you're truly, honestly interested in this person, approach them in a respectful manner, whether it is through social media or through a common friend or common family. I mean, it's not that hard to do that. Just approach with respect.
Another scenario that I'd like to just put out here is what I feel could cause this issue or this problem is people may have great intentions. I mean, we don't really know, we can't read intentions, but let's say hypothetically somebody, a young man, a good person wants to get to know somebody who's also a good person, who is divorced or who's widowed in our community, and they do that through social media or whatever mean it may be in a very respectful manner, and now they want to know one another. They spent some time getting to know one another, and it does not work out. Is there, and I know the answer, but I want you to elaborate on this. What are the repercussions of this very simple scenario that I just put out there? There are individuals now going around, men who have been in such situations, and a month, 2 months, 3 months, 5 months, 6 months later, I don't care, even if it's a year, this young woman decides that, look, I just cannot commit to you for the rest of my life because I was in a marriage and that marriage ended. I don't feel comfortable going into another marriage with somebody like yourself because I don't feel it's going to be successful.
Okay.
That's the first scenario. The second scenario, no, it's the man who says, I just cannot commit to you because I feel that this is not going to work out because maybe you're still scarred from the past.
Right. That's pretty
Now,
common.
this is very normal up until now, but what's not normal is the fact that one or two or both parties then start, speaking of this in different places and blackmailing each other or using social media to vent out. Uh, how can we tackle such issues, and how can we really? I mean, this is the lowest of the low when it comes to akhlaq, when it comes to manners.
Absolutely.
You
Absolutely.
could pray and fast all your life, but this will literally, you're throwing you're throwing fire onto everything that you've done, and it's all going to burn.
So let me pose the question back to you to help answer this. Why do you suppose there's such burning going on? Why is the burn there?
I
Rejection?
mean, yeah, I mean, it could be a rejection. Definitely, it could be a rejection. It could be that people are, trying to protect themselves against, people saying, well, you got rejected, or maybe they feel that their reputation is in jeopardy. I really don't know what it is, but from a psychological perspective, I think a sane person, a good person, is a one who tries to live with the least amount of anxiety in their lives, to be able to sleep at night comfortably.
Absolutely.
You
Absolutely.
don't want to have to think about how you ruin so many people's lives by exposing them, by threatening them, by maliciously ruining their reputation, accusing them, creating lies, fabrications. All those take time and energy, and they'll come back to us. They'll people.
There's
I
karma,
mean,
right?
do people not forget karma? Do people feel that
Hmm.
they just is this is okay? I don't understand. So from a psychological perspective, how damaging this could be, why people do that, maybe some stories you want to share with us.
Too many stories, Sayed. The short the short version of this is that sometimes people can get so hurt and confused with the rejection, with why this person doesn't want them. They take it so personally. And the only way that they can feel better is by hurting that person. So sometimes it can be done from that malicious perspective of they have to feel what I feel. And
Hmm.
there's different personality disorders that relate to that. Narcissism, borderline personality disorder, where the person cannot feel better unless they hurt that other person. So when we're talking about it from a psychological perspective, it comes down to that type of scenario. It sometimes could be a personality disorder. Sometimes they are actually very sick people in terms of evil, in terms of all the nasty things that you hear about people being so bad. They like to just hurt other people. That could be another scenario to this type, right? And sometimes, like I briefly said, that they're so hurt they don't know how to behave, right? They don't know how to behave, so they think that this is the right way to behave. So there's so many different explanations. It's not a cookie cutter type of answer because it truly depends on the person and their upbringing, their personality, and what contributed to their behavior. I've seen many people when we come down and say, but they're religious. How can they do that? They do this, they give to the poor. They're always showing themselves aligned with the right people. They do so many things in majalis. You have almost drawn up a picture of the perfect person, whether it's male or female. Yet when you come to their personal lives and you hear these types of stories, and this is what I see, sitting at this end as a therapist when people come at the other end and saying, this is what my partner did to me, or this is the person that I was getting to know did to me. And and unfortunately, some of these people are public figures that we know that, and it's just astounding sometimes when I hear these stories, but because of confidentiality and because of, I believe in what I do, I can't share obviously who, but the scenarios are classic. You're dealing with people who are narcissists, for example, who are high on themselves and feel they are untouchable. And they will go around and ruining other women's reputations, people who feel that what they are doing is actually the right thing. So in their skewed mind, they believe what they are doing is correct. They believe that what they're doing is halal, right? So there's so many different explanations from somebody who is being a narcissist or is a narcissist, who has these personality disorders, from somebody who is in the moment making a mistake because of their hurt, right? So again, truly depends on the scenario, on the person, the situation. How do you deal with this? Well, the person who's being harassed, there's different routes. Either you put a stop to it right away by addressing the authorities, getting people involved to stop this situation. Sometimes it's cyberbullying. Sometimes these people make fake accounts and start going around and saying all sorts of things about the other person. So sometimes you have to be a little bit sophisticated in terms of how to deal with that. And other times you just have to ignore. Truly, truly, in terms of, like we said, living in peace and not feeling so anxious. What is the worst this person's going to do to you? Ruin your reputation when you know you have done nothing but follow, so to speak, the rules. When you know you have done your best, when you know your intentions, right? If somebody's out there to get you and hurt you, check out the program I did with Hajj Hassanan Rajab Ali, where we talked in detail. I'm not going to get into it all now, but he gave step by step, and we looked at it from a psychological and religious perspective in terms of how to tackle people who are slandering and harassing. But the short version here, definitely there needs to be a stop to it. And there's definitely different strategies for the person who is being attacked, how to cope and deal with it. And for those people who have no shut-off, no self-respect, and no self-worth out there, who's doing it to a former partner because they were hurt, please go talk to a therapist to work through your anger issues and not project your weaknesses, your failures, your insecurities on that person who doesn't want to be with you. It's not right to go out there and hurt them. And publicly on social media, back in a while back, it used to be just talking to each other and gossiping, and then it gets around to the aunties and the khalas and the ammus and the families saying, you can't marry this person, they've done A, B, C, and D. Now it's publicly shamed on social media for everybody to see, and it causes so much distress for people on the other end. So truly, the person who's been rejected or didn't work out, you've shared secrets, private things with each other, you don't kiss and tell. That stays private. And we have a hadith that talks about things that are done in privacy, that are known, what you share with the other person. You have no right to go out there and share it with everybody else because you were rejected or because this person hurt you. This is absolutely, like you said, Sayyidina, against our akhlaq, morally and psychologically. There are explanations for it as well, and there are ways of coping and dealing with it as well.
There's just one thing that I would like to add before we get into the second segment of the discussion to our respected viewers is don't believe everything you hear. That's the very first thing that I've noticed in people is that they have learned the malicious ones, the evil ones. Unfortunately, they do exist in all shapes or form, in different clothing and different, backgrounds, and they're everywhere. Is that they've realized if they are the first ones to fabricate stories and lies and, so to speak, spread those rumors about this individual, they will then create this defense system for themselves, because if that person comes out and defends themselves, then everybody's like, no, that can't be true. I mean, after all those lies were spread about them. But for a second, just think about who would actually spread those lies. If the person who's being accused comes out to defend themselves, why are we less likely to believe them? That is the problem, because this person had the honor, like you said, had the shut-off to be quiet, but now they need to defend themselves because they're publicly accused. But the person that is going around exposing them ultimately was missing on some ethical principles. So why are we so quick in believing the person who spreads rumors and lies, and we actually take part in that conversation? So, don't be guilty by association is what I'm trying to actually emphasize on.